Hi, it's Jeff Chalmers here from discoverdoublebase.com at the 2023 ISB convention in the beautiful Ann Arbor, Michigan. And we are here to meet some of the luthiers and discuss innovation in double bass making. One of the exciting developments that I've come across and wanted to speak to these fine people about is the use of endangered woods. And one of the things that really brought it to my attention was this incredible instrument is 100% ebony free. And I believe that we have one here that is also 100% ebony free. So Joey, Kathy and Gael are going to discuss how this has come about. So yeah, first of all, I mean, great to meet you. Would you mind introducing yourselves and letting everybody know who you are and how this project came about?
My name is Gael McKeon. I'm a double bass luthier based in Portland, Maine.
Yeah.
And this is,
Sure.
I'm Kathy Reilly. I'm from Vermont Violins in Burlington, Vermont, and we make the Gaetone fingerboards.
Fantastic, yeah. And Joey?
And I'm Joey Naeger. I'm a bass luthier in the Houston area, and I make and repair basses.
Well, so okay, tell us about these materials then, because the other really exciting thing is that they sound incredible, and I believe actually, Joey, did you win an award for sound? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's
so
right, yeah.
Just maybe tell us about that first, so people can understand.
Sure. Yeah, I received a silver medal in tone for the competition, and also got convention favorite runner-up.
And did they know, the people that were judging, that the material was non-ebony?
No, the workmanship judges had no idea. They made no comments about it. They liked my ebony work, so my ebony work.
Yeah.
So yeah, it fooled them pretty well.
I would add to that,
Yeah,
just for clarity, that the awards are given in such a way that silver is actually the highest award in
Right.
tone. There's no gold.
Wow.
Yeah, so he won the highest award with the paper fingerboard.
Yeah, and this bass, I believe, as well, is another favourite. Is that right?
This is actually a bass that, it's sort of this is a restoration that
Yeah.
I completed. It's a turn of the century German, and it was not presented in any kind of competition. It's really an ambassador for alternative material. Yeah.
Well, tell us.
Just to complete that thought,
Yeah.
Joey presents a new instrument,
Yes.
and I'm presenting a quality old instrument to show the capacity of this fingerboard material.
So we have two master luthiers making incredible instruments, modern, restored, with an incredible carving as well, which I'm particularly fond of. But Kathy, tell us about how you fit into this story and about the materials that they're using to make these. If this isn't ebony, I mean, what is it?
Okay, so this is 95% post-consumer recycled paper and 5% bioresin. So it
Wow.
is sustainably certified, it is petrochemical free, it's got all kinds of awards, and it is a great alternative for ebony because structurally it's very similar, and it's slightly harder, so we don't have to dress those fingerboards as often.
And non-toxic.
And it's non-toxic.
So it's
Yeah.
called Gaetone.
Yep.
Gaetone. And so, Joey, how have you found working with this compared to regular ebony? I mean, what's it like from the luthier's point of view?
The material itself is definitely harder to work, but one of the advantages of this material is the stability of it. So one of the things how I got involved with this project was actually designing the fingerboard model. I made a 3D model that they used to actually carve the fingerboard ahead of time. So even though the material it's harder to work with hand tools because it was shaped to my specs already, installing it was actually very simple.
Fantastic.
You know.
So basically, Joey came up with a model that's already scooped and shaped. So when we make it, it's pretty much ready to go on the instrument. You just have to glue it on.
Yeah.
So it saves the luthiers a lot of time and energy.
Wow.
So that's really attractive. And then the players playing it love Joey's model.
Yeah.
So he really is the most popular guy here right now. For so many reasons.
I would add,
Please.
with regards to workability, despite it being harder, it's well within
Tolerances.
tolerance. It's like I was able to bandsaw it, file it, rasp it, scrape it, and plane it. It could require some harder plane blades that Kathy's currently working on developing these things, but they already do exist as well. So it's something that can be worked. It also provides consistent, predictable quality and absolute stability.
Yeah.
And with diminishing ebony resources, one thing that's coming ever more frequent is wood that is not so workable and not so predictable. And so it's really both time for this and also there's not really going to be a choice.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps we could finish, Kathy, by explaining why it's so important that we are moving away from ebony. And it feels like the whole, I mean, perhaps you could speak on that just to wrap up, and we can see the benefits in terms of how this Gaia tone is performing and it's going to take its place, but why should we be interested and concerned about this, and why is it such an issue?
So with global climate change, our forests are becoming a more and more important resource. What's happening with a lot of these tree species is they're part of bigger ecosystems that are getting kind of torn apart and destabilized because we're picking individual species that we're over-consuming, over-harvesting, and that kind of starts those ecosystems unraveling. So what we're trying to do is find sustainable alternatives so we can protect those systems and still have our musical future.
Well, I think it's a wonderful note to end on behalf of everyone at the ISB and double bass players everywhere and string instrument players. It's just so important the work you're doing. Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing it. And congratulations on these wonderful instruments, which are proof of why this is so important and what can be achieved with it. So it's great. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. So here we are at the ISB convention. It gives me enormous pleasure to introduce a good friend, an incredible bass maker, one of the people who is really pushing at the double bass scene today in terms of making instruments that are incredibly playable, sound great, and are beautifully made. So we're going to talk about his approach to double bass making and possibly look at reduced size instruments, larger instruments. So welcome, Mitch. It's just great to have you here today.
Yeah, nice to see you again.
So tell me, Mitch Moehring, where are you based? What are you doing? Are you doing mostly repair work, building? How's it looking?
Yeah, so I'm in Kilgore, Texas, which is a pretty rural town in Texas, but I'm fairly close to Dallas, so customers can fly in from there. I'm mostly making full time.
Yeah.
However, I do make time for restoration work because it's so needed, especially in our area.
So this bass, tell me about it. What's the size of this instrument? Because it looks like it has slightly larger lower bouts. Am I right in making that assumption?
Yeah. So this is actually a 7/8 model. It's loosely based on a Piattolini, which is a model I'm really attracted to. It's a lovely shaped Italian instrument.
Right.
And this is an enlarged 7/8 size. It's a round back with an Italian poplar. And then the cant up here, which is important to me because I'm all about ergonomics.
Yes.
I want basses to be as comfortable for the player to play. And it starts with design and then setup.
Right.
And so this is an enlarged 7/8 model with an extension. It has a spruce top, of course, and then poplar back and sides and a maple neck.
And you have a removable neck system in here, which just seems to be becoming almost kind of more commonplace. It's not surprising to see them, and this is really beautifully set in the back.
You.
I think if you didn't see the I mean, it's impossible to tell if you can't see the bolt that's on the top here. From the driver's seat, you can probably tell, but I can't see any kind of gap or anything. Is that something you're doing for all of your basses or for most of them?
Every bass.
Really?
But I design it in such a way that if someone really didn't like the idea of a removable neck, all they'd have to do is glue it in. It's fitted exactly like a typical bass neck, and it's just a single bolt that holds it in place.
And you made this extension as
I
well
did.
with these beautiful gates.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh wow, this is great. So, I've never. Did you make the gates as well?
I did. Yes, everything is handmade.
Whoa.
Yeah. That's a B.
I was going to say, it feels like there's an extra. Whoa.
It's really gnarly.
Really cool. And are you finding that most of the basses or most of the players are asking for extensions now?
It really depends on the playing style. My jazzers doesn't seem like there's really a need for it. But for orchestra playing, it's almost required. If you go to a symphony, I would say 90% of the symphony bass players have an extension. So it's such commonplace now.
I think it does feel like that's the way that the world has gone, and it's great that these innovations that used to be, well, optional things are becoming more commonplace. The removable neck, the extension, and this is beautifully set up, so it feels very comfortable to play when you have the gates closed. And some bass extensions of the old ones, particularly the little steel bars, they never really close tight enough for me.
Sure.
This is perfect. So,
thanks. I'd love to mention.
Go on, tell us about it.
Part of when I'm designing an instrument, like I was saying, how I want it to feel comfortable on the back, how it touches your body.
Yeah, let me.
I also.
It's very well balanced.
Yeah.
Feels very comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a very important spot, in my opinion. We can still have a 7/8 bass.
Yes.
That anyone can honestly play, because this is so sloped just right here, so that doing that transition into thumb position, fourth position, it's very, very easy. And what's nice is I can start with that. I can start with the slope here and then puff out, and it's not in your way.
No.
It still gives you that body mass and the air mass on the inside, but still making it very ergonomically friendly.
It really is very comfortable to play, and you're well known for making also 5/8 basses, so you're pushing at the either end of the spectrum here. And, a good friend of ours, Dr. Kate Jones.
Yes.
She has, I believe, is it your second bass or something?
Yes.
Or was it a very early one?
She owns my first 5/8 that I made. It was my second bass ever.
Wow.
And she approached me at the 2017 convention. She played my competition instrument, the first one. She said, it's the only bass that I could physically play in the competition. Great, but I need it even smaller.
Okay.
And so she's the one, it is all because of Kate Jones.
Yeah.
She's the one that really pushed me to design a 5/8 model, but she has very specific tonal requirements.
Sure.
And so she wanted it small, but she wanted it to still have that sound.
Yeah.
So I made that one, and then a few years later, I entered the next competition with a 5/8.
Okay.
And it received a silver medal for tone. And so it just kind of proves it's not about the body size anymore.
Yeah.
With all the development in bass making and techniques, we can make small instruments sound incredible.
Yeah.
And makes it really easy to play because we're not all the same shape.
Yeah.
And including the size of your hand, including the size of your body, and how it touches your body.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty passionate about that.
I think it's really important. I think for too long people have been forced to play instruments that aren't right for them, and we're all such different shapes and sizes.
Sure.
It makes absolute sense, and we have such different goals. I was thinking at the convention, I was there and I was chatting with Danny Zeman, wonderful jazz bass player and our friend as well, who was also singing your praises. And I asked him after I think he was judging the jazz awards.
He did the jazz tone judge.
And I might be putting words in his mouth, Danny, I'm sorry if I was, but I'm pretty sure you were saying about how I was saying which basses did you really like, and he said, I love Mitch's basses. Of all the wonderful instruments, he was saying that one really spoke to him. So
that's great. Thank you.
So what's next? I mean, what's on your bench at the moment? What are you going forward with?
The next, I'm actually the next one I'm making is another 5/8.
Cool.
I plan on it being an orchestral model.
Okay.
An orchestral 5/8. So Kate's is very sloped here in the shoulders, and the next one I'll do will be nice and puffy, almost like this bass, but a 5/8 model.
A 5/8 version.
Right. And so that's the next thing I'm going to start. I'm not accepting it as a commission so that I can build exactly what I want for this one.
Yeah.
So that's pretty important. And of course it'll find an owner, but I'm going to do it exactly the way I want to.
And what about in terms of like making instruments for jazz bass players? If you were making an instrument for me and I've got this jazz background, I'm not an orchestral player, how might you make the bass differently, or what are some of the things that we might talk about in the process?
Sure. Well, a good example is my maybe fifth bass is a 5/8 model.
Nice.
It was commissioned by a jazz player, Ed Wise in New Orleans, and he wanted it to. He actually wanted it to feel exactly like Kate Jones' bass.
Okay.
And she's playing solo literature. So the
Interesting.
reason I tell you all that is I personally wouldn't change anything. I always listen to the customer, and I try to make them as happy as possible while still doing what I believe is right.
Yes.
But he still wanted it to be round. He wanted it round here at the nut. He wanted it round at the bottom.
Yeah.
I do setups from time to time for people, and they want a little flatter, and I'm happy to do so. But if you just do a really easy to play setup, then it works for both.
That's exactly my experience. My Martin Bailey, who built the neck for my instrument, he did a beautiful neck graft, and I'm pretty sure the approach is exactly the same as he does because everybody wants a nice, comfortable to play instrument with a good overstand, so you can get great access. And I think that's we're not so far apart, the classical and jazz world, as we maybe sometimes think we are.
Maybe strings.
Yes.
Right.
Extension maybe. Or,
yeah.
Sure.
But these are the Parastro Perpetuals.
Yes.
And I love it as that hybrid string. It was,
cool.
I may be speaking out of turn, but I think it was designed to be a pizzicato string.
Yes.
And it sounds so good with the bow.
Yeah.
And so, we may change strings to maybe make a pizzicato or arco player happier.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Mitch, thanks so much for spending time with us, introducing us to this beautiful double bass.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Best of luck with all you're making. It's been a real pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers, man. Thanks so much. So, what about bringing us to the convention here? When you're speaking to bass players and they're putting the orders in, what are the kind of things that people are typically looking for in an instrument now? And has that changed much? I mean, you mentioned about wanting a smaller bass, which kind of made me, I've noticed as more and more kind of reduced or slightly smaller basses, but what's your experience been of the way things have changed and what people want from an instrument?
Well, one thing is I don't take commissions generally anymore.
Okay.
What I do is I build what I think I can sell and what I like to build. But we're right next to one of the world's leading violin and bass dealers. I'm not going to mention any names.
Yes.
And what they've told me is over the years, they're having a harder and harder time selling large, high-shouldered instruments. One of the reasons is that in Asia, many of the orchestral bass players are women, and they tend to be on the smaller side because supposedly the men have such big egos that they don't want to be in the back of the orchestra. Yeah. At least that's anecdotally what I've heard. So yes, the tendency is toward not small but smaller basses. It's easier to sell a bass that's a compact 7/8 or a 3/4 size than it is to sell a large, big shouldered bass. Thinking of, for example, a Hawks.
Yes.
Those are very difficult to move these days, that type of instrument. So I tend towards more ergonomically designed instruments.
And that brings us on to your signature, or one of your signature basses, is the ergonomic model, which is the most profoundly different double bass that I've seen. And it just was one of the basses that I absolutely fell in love with. Our friend Chris Fitzgerald was playing it at the Ithaca convention, I believe, and I had a couple of moments to play a few notes, and it absolutely spoke to me. And it was so different. Maybe you could speak to us a little bit about that instrument and the concepts behind it.
Right, okay. Well, the genesis of that instrument was that bass players had revealed through their trying out of instruments that everybody's looking for the same thing, which is an orchestra bass that also they can get around to play upper register solos. And that's very difficult to accomplish because these pear-shaped basses with the very small upper bout and the very large lower bout, to my ear they sound very nasal. So my intention was to create a bass that is a bit of a blob, smaller on one side to get around with your left arm, larger on the bottom on the other side to make up for the lack of air volume, but still having a relatively wide, approximately 20-inch upper bout. I don't know what that is in metric off the hand, but
Sure.
yeah. So I drew out this kind of amorphous blob-shaped body And then I decided if I built that, no one would be able to pick it up and handle it.
Yes.
So a concession was to make upper corners and make the rest of the thing cornerless. The other thing is
so that's why it has corners at the top.
yes, so you can move it.
I hadn't realised
Yeah,
that.
it's just it's more ergonomic for the sake of handling.
So it's an asymmetrical instrument.
Yes,
and
very
it has,
asymmetrical.
And it has no corners on the bottom bouts, and
Right.
the top it does, so you can pick it up.
Right.
And another thing that jumped out at me was the holes in the side of the ribs. Maybe you could speak a little bit about what they're for.
Yes, I will do that. The reason for the sound holes is my notion that perhaps if you had some sound coming up at yourself, you would do less of this kind of body twisting to try to hear yourself from the fingerboard and the strings.
Yeah.
Perhaps you, and it's not a direct sound, but there's a bit of an aura of sound that comes up through there.
Yeah.
And I do believe it does help you hear yourself a little bit better.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, it's absolutely incredible instrument and one that I enormously played. And so what are the bass, just to finish off, what's the bass that you're currently making? Are you backed on the violin pattern basses, or that you get, what's on the bench?
Well, since I kind of semi-retired and moved to New Mexico, I build basses on spec. So when I build a bass, I take it to my dealer, which is generally Robertson and Sons, because they're also in New Mexico and not that hard for me to get to. So what I'm building essentially is violin-shaped basses of 3/4 and compact 7/8 size. I have not built an ergonomic bass in about 7 or 8 years, but I'm thinking that might be my next project because I would like to get back to it. You know, it's more personal. It's a personal model. It doesn't look like every other bass, and people do enjoy the ergonomic aspect of it, as well as they usually sound darn good.
Yeah. Well, that's so fantastic. And thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure meeting you, Arnold.
Pleasure, Jeff.
Well, thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoyed that video, and of course a big thank you to everybody who participated. It's an incredible topic, and we were so fortunate to have all of these wonderful people together in a beautiful Ann Arbor, Michigan. So if you want to learn about the double bass, head over to discoverdouble bass.com to check out some more videos, and we'll see you next time.